playoff stuff. But, I do topics. That's what I do, so I'm going to lead with a topic today. I thought the Bruce Jenner interview was captivating Friday. I said on Twitter, here's my guess the ratings game. It's going to be gigantic, and it was. All those NBA playoff games, add them together, double them, Bruce Jenner beat them. I thought it was fascinating. Number one, if people watched it and it makes people more sympathetic towards transgender, huge win. I watched it, and Diane Sawyer has been a leading journalist for 30 years in this country. She was confused by it. I found myself talking to my wife during that 2-hour interview and learning things. I didn't understand it. I mean, the first time I heard about transgender was probably like 15 years ago, and I'm like, that's kind of weird. I don't get it. I just don't get it. And there were questions during the interview that Bruce Jenner didn't know. And I think, I'll just speak for men, I think it's very tough for a lot of men, to make sense of transgender. One, because we think everything's in terms of sexuality. It's very hard for men to just have an attractive female friend without thinking about that. Men tend to think in terms of sexuality. Sex. Transgender isn't a sex thing. It's an identity thing. That's hard for guys. It's hard for a lot of guys. We're visual animals, and anytime we see something like this, it must be for sex. But it's a identity issue, not a sex issue. The second thing is, the easiest way, because I think most guys have never wanted to be women. 99% of guys don't, so they have a hard time figuring it out. Just do this. Reverse it. If you're driving around right now as a guy, you like baseball, hunting, fishing, guy things, historically, guy stuff. You got a fantasy football team, love going out and having brews with the guys, you love the Cubs, you guy stuff, right? But you were born a woman. Oh, that's weird. Right? What that's kind of what... It's very hard for a guy to think about turning to a woman. But what if you right now thought the way you thought and you were a woman? Would you be screaming your entire life, I want to be a guy? That's what I kept thinking during the entirety of the interview. I was trying to put myself into Bruce Jenner's frame of mind, and I thought, but I can't because I don't want to be a woman. But if I liked all the stuff I like now and was a woman, would I want to be a guy? Yeah, I'd probably understand it. And I thought it was a fascinating glimpse into something that's been happening in America for 100 years, but much like gay Americans, they weren't able to acknowledge it for a long time for fear of violence, repercussions, even at work. Forget social, even at work, even at their families. Gay Americans, 30 years ago, gays marginalized, feared for their safety, feared for their jobs. We had to create legislation to protect them. They're human beings. So I think a lot of times, I'll give you something that's not really connected to this, but we got into this discussion this morning as a staff. For years, now this was something that I think 10 to 15 years ago in America that a lot of men couldn't get their arms around. It's an entirely separate thing, but I'll just show you the reality, how we struggle sometimes with gender identification and any issue involving gender sexuality. I remember 10, 15 years ago, Boy Scout leaders. If you were gay and a Boy Scout leader, whoa, pedophilia. What? Has nothing to do with that. FBI data proves that pedophiles are married white men. Well, no, they've got to be gay, but pedophilia is not about sex. It's about violence, manipulation. People struggle with that. How can a Boy Scout leader be trusted? He's not attracted to children. You know who is? Pedophiles who are white, often Christian, married, heterosexual men. And I listened and watched this topic for years, and guys couldn't get their arms around it. People couldn't. Well, if you're sleeping with it, pedophilia is not about sex. It's about violence, manipulation, wiring. And then I watched how America treats gay Americans. And it's always about sex. No, it's not. 10 years into a relationship, gay people are like heterosexual people. They don't have as much sex. They don't talk about it as much. They often drift apart. we always glom onto the sexuality thing as guys because that's how we see the world. We're visual animals often. To me, the Bruce Jenner thing was not about that at all. Bruce Jenner laughed about it. Listen to Diane Sawyer. I want to play this tape. She's brilliant. She is an Emmy Award-winning, world-class journalist, married to the late Mike Nichols, one of the most educated journalists in America. And she was confounded by some of the questions.
Are you gay?
No, I'm not gay. I am not gay. I am, as far as I know, heterosexual.
You don't know.
Because it's not... As far
as you know.
As far as I know. I've never been with a guy. I've always been married, raising kids.
Right. And you can desire a woman every bit as much.
Yeah, yeah.
He's almost amused by my attempt to walk through this maze.
Again, it's the confusion inside this because...
So much confusion.
Yes. If you are assigned male and you become female, but you like women, are you a lesbian? Are you a heterosexual who...
You're going back to the sex thing.
Yes,
and it's apples and oranges.
Yeah, see, it's
two different things.
It's apples and oranges.
Sexuality is who you're personally attracted to.
Right.
Who, turns you on, male or female. But gender identity has how to do with who you are as a person and your soul and who you identify with inside.
See, even Diane Sawyer. So to me, the entire Bruce Jenner thing was this educational opportunity for myself. I didn't understand it. And if it creates a little bit of compassion and a little bit of empathy, I think a lot of people are, it's kinky. It has nothing to do with that. Being gay is not about being kinky. Being a gay Boy Scout leader, they're fine. Being around young boys, gay America's fine. Transgender, it's an identity thing. They're struggling. They're grappling with it. We're grappling with it. I thought it was fascinating, captivating television. Or even Diane Sawyer at one point said, "Are you a..." So then you'd be a tomboy. Nobody can quite get their arms around it. But if it created, I think Kim Kardashian asked Bruce Jenner, he goes, "So let me figure this out. You're a guy who wants to be a woman who likes sports. You're a tomboy." And Bruce Jenner laughs. He goes, "Yeah, maybe that's it." So we're all kind of on this thing together, trying to figure it out. But if it creates compassion and empathy, then it's a great thing. Because you saw some of the violent attacks on transgenders, the same thing gay Americans went through 50 years ago. So that was that to me was the most fascinating thing by a mile. I'll get 1,000 emails today. Don't talk about this, break down sports. Bruce Jenner was America's best athlete 30 years ago. He was a rock star, Wheaties box, all over television. Looked like a male model who was the best athlete. He was the best looking guy in America, arguably, and the best athlete. He was like Jordan before Jordan. Fascinating. Thoughts on Floyd Mayweather?